Zoom wants to give you the opportunity to unmute yourself. But anyway, all right, cool. So it's 11:02. So anybody who is sort of, straggling, coming from other classes or can't make it live, they can catch the recording. So let's go ahead and get started. May I have you introduce yourself for me, please, sir?
So how do I start by putting everyone on my presentation? Can we do that right away, or you would prefer I introduce myself right away? I can do that as well.
Yeah, let's introduce yourself first, okay. And then we'll share the screen.
Okay, so my name is Stéphane Dubreuil. I am co-founder of the boutique Wolf Lapin here in Montreal. We've been in business since 2001. Basically cut our teeth on animation, mainly in the writing, script writing, animation here in Canada, and some in LA. Then we moved on to digital content, YouTube, and obviously more TV content and film. We primarily are focused on genre film because, first of all, we like it. And we are great partners with the Fantasia Film Festival here in Montreal, which is a genre film festival, and it's been going for, my God, 27 years now, which obviously this year will be online, but we'll still be a part of it somehow.
All right, cool. Sounds good. So let's see here. If we want to get the presentation started, you've got that little green share screen button there at the bottom.
Okay, hang on, let me get that. Share screen. This is me here. Do share. And I do this.
There we go, coming through loud and clear.
So this is my, my masthead, if you will. This is our website. I don't know if some of you checked it out, but we do have an affiliate office in Berlin. Berlin has great incentives, a bit like Canada. So we have partners over there, another agency, mostly on the acting side of things, but we're trying to build relationships with European producers as well as American producers. And like I said, we've been in business since 2001. And most of our, the heart of our business is writers and directors. We generally look for the perfect script, which is the hardest thing to find. 1 in 100 usually is our average, 1 in 50 maybe. But we like to package the script, whether it's an American, European, Canadian writer, with talented directors, either here in Canada or LA directors, but it's easier for us to bring some of the financing to the table with the Canadian director portion. What else can I say about my boutique? We have had a couple of projects that came out during the pandemic. They were launched online, and our most recent project was written by Dan Shea, directed by Carrie Harris, which is called Dreamcatcher. It was at some point one of the biggest streaming movies out there around April when it came out. So we're really happy with that. Moving on. So I find it kind of interesting that I am sharing my screen with you guys right now. So I'm kind of in a screen life moment with you, which is pretty much what we're here to talk about. I want to jump right in and show you, I think, which to me is a very great example of what a screen life movie is. And this was done for short content by the Bezalev's company, which I'll talk about in just a minute. But I think it's worth it. This was done for Snapchat, 3 minute, and I'll give you a really, really good idea of what I want to talk about today. I'm just going to roll it. That's not, let me see here. Why isn't this playing? There we go. Why is it going to the next slide? There we go.
We might need to, or we might have to not go to full screen because sometimes
Is that what you're thinking? Okay.
Yeah.
The students are standing outside for like 10 minutes. She's like drooling. Look at her. What's up? Go, go. Bro, I don't get the light on my face, bro. I can't see. We should leave. Let's go. Let's go.
Literally 5 blocks away from your house, and this happens.
I'm just going to move it up a little bit.
I can't believe this shit. Oh my god. Shannon, tell me to get back in the car. Now. Get out of this! Go! Shannon! Shannon, are you there?
So in about 3.5 minutes, there was a lot of drama that was created. And this they call vertical production, which is using basically the technology that we have available on our iPads, iPhones, or Androids, what have you. And this is the new type of content that is getting bought and getting a lot more attention in the market these days. And my journey, our journey anyway, with Screen Life and the Screen Life format starts at Fantasia. Fantasia, as I said, is a genre film festival which has about 100,000 people coming in for the 2-week duration of the festival. And there are great people rolling into town. This is the Safdie brothers who were presenting at the time. Good Time. Robert Pattinson, of course. Guillermo del Toro presented a film or a couple of films here. Pan's Labyrinth, and he also received an award here, the Cheval Noir, or the Black Horse, in 2018. Speaking of visionaries, this is Timur Bekmambetov, and this is where Screen Life begins. In 2018, he presented a masterclass at Fantasia. He had presented some of these in Russia and other places in Eastern Europe, but never in North America. And of course, we were there. We are VR programmers of the Fantasia Film Festival, so we're always pretty much closely tied to the program and what's going on and all the activities. And he gave a really great master class on the format. This is the film that, the first feature film, which I'm sure you've all heard of, Unfriended, which was presented in 2014 at Fantasia, which is a long time ago. But since then, the format has gotten a lot of traction. I'm just going to play, I don't know why I'm getting this problem. Okay, so this is the trailer. I'm just going to show you just a little bit of the, again, the loading. All is done from computer screens, phones, iPad cameras, all on the screen.
Want to take some pictures? Post it. I need another drink.
I'm not going to play all this. I'm just trying to show you a very dramatic moment here.
Did you guys buy your tickets 2 weeks ago like I asked you? No. Which seats are better, balcony or orchestra?
Hey, choose your buddy.
Who is that?
I just tried to hang up on him.
Can we get rid of this person? I don't know. Was this here the whole time?
This is probably a glitch.
Who is doing this? This is Laura's account. Who would hack into a dead girl's account?
Maybe it's Laura.
Everyone hands up right now. Who's doing this?
Guys, seriously, who posted the video?
It wasn't me.
Well, one of us did.
So we can see that with just this very type of screen camera work, we can create a lot of tension, especially with the writing and the cursor movement and what is not written and what can be written and what shows up beside the text boxes. And I'll get to that, which is part of the technique that we're going to talk about today. Why Screen Life? So this is one of the biggest questions that I find Timur Bezalev's, the company, bore down on, and I think this is really important for everyone and why there is such an excitement for this format right now. And I think that like most people, if you're anything like me, you do your banking online. I've been married for 20 years, 23 years now, so I haven't met anyone online, but I'm sure a lot of the younger generation meet people online. We order food online, we book reservations online, we pretty much do entertainment online, especially during the pandemic. So pretty much of our lives revolves around our online existence. So this is Timur. He's really trying to devise a new language, and he, much like me and much like you guys, spends a lot of his time on screen. He's a director, producer, he's based out of Moscow. He realized early on that there was something there, that all his time spent talking on Skype and exchanging through Google and emailing and texting was part of of his existence, so much so that he felt that there was an urgency to start film production using this very language. He had to devise it. So a bit like other visionaries, like perhaps Lars von Trier and Orson Welles, and many of the great directors in the history of cinema, there has to be a time when the old language, the traditional forms of cinematic language have to evolve. And this is what Timur Bekmambetov is being known for. And more, he's developing this type of production and directing. Not only is he directing his own films, but he's also inviting young directors to use his tools, to use his language, to produce a slate of projects. I don't know if you guys saw this go by, but in a couple of months ago, his company signed a five-picture deal with Universal, I'm sorry. And we have 2 projects in that slate. So we're very happy with that. But that started with obviously learning the tools and understanding the format. And we know that there is an intense emotionality online. We've all felt through our interactions, frustration, whatever they may be. Maybe the experience of waiting for a very important text or a communication with a spouse or a child or something urgent. And we've always all at some point felt some intense emotion interacting with people online. The beach ball of death, for instance, is another example of that. Or a website that won't load, whatever banking you want to do on a given day. Of course, lo and behold, the website won't load and you're late and you have a penalty. And this can all be very aggravating, but still part of our digital life, our digital interaction. The screen is a pathway to your intimacy, to your whole life, and I believe that. If you look at someone's screen, you can find out a lot about who that person is, what they do, what they like, where they've been, what they've surfed, what they may have erased, which can be found out anyway. So in a nutshell, your screen is you. And this, Timur and everybody involved in the Screen Live format totally understand and accept to be true. And this is where the journey begins. You have to understand, as a writer or creator, if you're going to invest yourself in a Screen Live script, you will be writing from a point of view that is sacred to you, which is you. You're not writing in a third person. You're writing from your screen. You're writing from your experience and all the navigation that you do. So that's very important. So how do we dramatize the Screen Live format? There are stories online that we have yet to find a language for, and this is true. So here, I hope this works and there is no bug. So this is a good example of, you'll see, it's just about a minute. It's a great example of tension online between these 2 characters, which is the film Profile, again, produced by Timur. It was at Fantasia, we saw it there. It's based on the true story of a reporter investigating how Western women get involved in ISIS and become jihadi wives. And this is one of her first interactions with an ISIS fellow. It's notice the sound, notice what's going on the screen, notice how it's being deployed, and you will feel the tension, I'm sure. Just pay attention to everything that's going on screen. It's really important. Okay, that happened again. I don't know why this happens. Okay.
What's that behind you? What's that I can see?
Do you like guns? Yeah. I'll give you plenty. Starting with this lovely Kalashnikov.
Kalash.
Kalash.
Ne.
Kov.
Ko. Kalashnikov.
When are you gonna
Notice
come
the
down?
bubbles coming down. The call is dropped for her.
This space. Just give me a minute. Just hang on.
Quick, Lou, how do I respond to a serious question?
Okay, look. You can't travel alone as a respectable woman, so you should say that you need to be accompanied by a man. There's someone like Chloe.
You're doing just great, but you need to get to the topic and figure out how they recruit the girls. We
Okay.
need to wrap up this investigation as soon as possible for your own safety.
Yeah, look, Amy, you just gotta be careful. The risk to her cover is huge. They've got a giant IT
Okay.
department. They've got some powerful hackers
Okay.
all over the world.
Okay, sure.
Guys, no joke,
Okay, he's calling. Can you stay there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
With a hijab, it's fine.
Right. Right, just cover your ear. That's fine. Yeah, looks good.
So I don't know if you felt it. This is probably the 10th time I've seen it in the last couple of days. There is a certain amount of tension there. There's a lot of people reacting to her. The obvious call, the ringing coming in. All the tools that are on the screen are being used to the fullest. And this to me is a great example of one of those moments where she risks being found out. And it's a great part of the movie as well. If you haven't seen it, do see it. Again, this is a great example of micro budgets. This was done for around $1 million and it grossed somewhere around $50 million. So that's why distributors and producers are getting behind these types of projects. A bit like Blumhouse, but I'll get to that a bit later. On to the next slide. So this will kind of slow things down a little bit. This is a short film. One of the first instances to me anyway, of the Screen Life format. This was presented by a group of Toronto kids at TIFF, and it won Best Short. Here, I think what I want you to key on is the character. How character development is unrolled and just with a few clicks here and there and a few entries of text here and there and starting of launching of a few web pages. Again, every time I do this, let's see, okay. As I said, this was an official selection, 2013. 2013, a bit dated. You'll see there's a lot of Facebook in here. Facebook is no longer what it was. Zooming is a big one, but this comes with the direction at some point. The company Bezalev's is devising all manner of tools, including a recorder that you can record from your screen. And these guys are using their own tools in a very adept way. I'm not going to play all this, but you'll figure out before he gets on the call with his girlfriend. He's divulging a lot about himself. And we have the pornographic website playing in the background.
I don't see you. Oh,
Where are you?
there you are.
Oh, hey.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, what are you doing?
Oh, I was
Here we
just looking at these.
Yeah, you sent me this like 2 days ago.
It's so funny you should see it twice.
Scanning of the screen and panning and moving.
So did you get all your uni stuff
Very
in on time?
dynamic movement.
Sorry?
Your application form, did you finish it?
Oh, yeah, no, I did. I was actually just filling out a
So
quiz to find the perfect roommate.
Again, his
Oh yeah, I did
compulsive switching also tells
I
us a
just
lot
am
about
not,
who he is and what
that too.
kind of fellow he is.
I'm just gonna be like doing homework all the time.
And I may include this
Sticking up
and
a
send it
place
out
with
to
your
you guys
work, Jack.
for you to watch it
Yeah, I mean, that's the worst that could happen, right?
But it's really the story of a breakup. But this was just the example of
So
how, you know, the use of the screens and the
next
clicking
year.
and the zooming and the interaction
I don't know about us.
makes it very effective.
Well, I've just been thinking a
Let's
lot about what
stop
it's going to
this.
be like when
So
you're in
this
a
is
different
Noah.
city. And
I'm sure you can find it online somewhere. It's a very good short film done by just a group of kids. Phenomenal. So again, this is Timur telling us that traditional modes of being are no longer relevant. We are not, well, some of us may or may not return to our normal lives, but I think a lot of teleworking will take more space in our lives. We'll switch. I mean, we're in a transition phase, and I think that Timur saw this coming, even without the pandemic. I think that there is still a switch going on right now. And again, the interaction with the screens is everything. You know, I have 2 kids, and they spend most of their time on their phone, and like a lot of it, like everybody else. So the Screen Life mission is to create emotional stories that establish new moral codes for our digital lives. This is really important. So, you know, as much as they think that they've invented this, this will continue to evolve. Maybe there'll be, you know, a cinematic way to do this as well. But for now, they're really concentrating on the screen. And those codes will also come from how we live our lives and make our moral choices online. So this is kind of a facetious thing. And I think that it's true, you know, when you start out in a new cinematic language, you can't impose yourself too many rules, but there are a couple of ground rules that they've started observing and making sure that, you know, the projects that they have 50 projects in development right now. And they see certain trends in the production of these projects. And we're just going to bear down on a couple of rules here that I've shared with Maria, the producer at Bezalets, who works with Timur. So one of the main rules when you're writing a script for Screen Life is to write from the first person. So you can't say the character or John opens his screen of his laptop, types his password. That's not what they are expecting to receive as scripts. They want to give a sense of the immediacy of what it is to be online, and first person is the way to do it. This is probably the most important rule, according to me, and I was working with actually another roadmap writer a couple of weeks ago, and he had a great concept that I really liked, and we were trying to fit it in the Screen Life format, and it wasn't working because of one really important thing. The story didn't have anything to do with the digital world. So this, as you've seen by the examples, a lot of the stories that we've seen up to now, the examples anyway, all have something to do with the digital world and screens. So this has to be your starting point for sure. This is writing 101. I mean, I'm not here to talk about you know, your character's motivations, but of course, you know, that has to be the focus. It must be the focus. Yeah, that's a really good one. I myself was in experiencing or trying to stay in touch with my family during the pandemic, and found myself in a lot of participating in Zooms with upwards of 14 people, members and friends, members of my family and friends, and but that does not make a Screen Life movie. So there has to be an interaction, and not just a set of tiles of videos of people just looking blankly at their camera. That's not a digital story. So Bezalevs, the company, the Russian company that Timur has started, believe in this format so much. And Alexandra will send you some of these links. They believe it. They believe in it so much, I should say, that they've devised a. I'm not going to call it an academy because that's not really what it is, but they have a set of videos on their website that they've produced that give a good sense of how to start. And they all have their tools, the camera recorder of your screen, and they give a lot of insight on how to get started, if not for a feature, at the very least for a short, which they have strongly encouraged in Russia anyway. They've had a couple of English submissions, but they produced a whole slew of short screen life films during the pandemic, and they call it Tales from the Quarantine, and it's on their website now, and I urge you to go see what they've done, and I'll show you an example a bit later on. So this is one of them. This is a really very useful one. I think you'll figure out some of the things that I talk about will be in this. This one I find really important. I just want to talk about it, and I'm going to try to see if I can get it to work right away.
Traditional movies, the protagonist reveals herself through action.
Which
what reveals her action?
To me, which is really the important thing, is how the cursor moves and how the typing happens. We won't see it in here, but I think one dramatic note that you can get in a Screen Life script, maybe even at the beginning, a bit like we saw in Noah, someone typing their password, maybe someone typing in Google, the top 5 ways to commit suicide. Then you know right away what this character is about, what he intends to do, what the inciting event is, right there in a matter of just seconds. So this, bear with me, this is just about 2 minutes of how they've devised their own technique and the way to dramatize the movement of the cursor and typing on screen. Okay, still running into this problem. I apologize. Okay, this should work.
Central action is the simplest and clearest. The click, which means that in the center of Screen Life, there is the cursor moving and clicking, opening and closing programs and web pages. Perhaps click is too abstract.
All this information has been created.
Actions in more detail. Firstly, there is typing. The protagonist can type messages, make notes,
this is part of the
type
production
a password
design.
to access the places she really needs. The main thing is that we see the process in real time, not just the final result hidden under plenty of editor's corrections and rearrangements. In other words, the viewer has direct access to the way the protagonists think, to the origins of her ideas and initial wordings before she rewrites or deletes anything. Secondly, searching. Just like traditional movie characters, here our protagonist can search for something. The difference is that in Screen Life, she doesn't need to go somewhere new. Instead, she can simply Google the necessary information. She can search in computer folders or in old emails. All these actions help us better understand the character and immerse ourselves in their inner worlds. Thirdly, scrolling. This is an even more basic action that shows us a lot of unexpected information through such a simple act. The viewer sees what catches the protagonist's attention and what she leaves unread. Fourthly, zoom. Also an effective trick to focus the viewer's attention. One can zoom images, websites, separate desktop elements. All of this can be done by either the protagonist or the director. Fifthly, mixing. In Screen Life, the protagonist decides what to show on the screen and what to hide. She can activate or stop YouTube videos, study some notes, or browse images on her computer. There can be background music chosen by the protagonist and change the moment she likes. The protagonist mixes the images, audio and video files that together reflect her feelings, helping move the story forward. And all of this can be done simply with the click of a cursor. There you are.
So in one of these videos, they also talk about, you know, obviously there's a great amount of work that goes before the camera is turned on, which, you know, in traditional filmmaking is traditional production design. But a lot of the screens that you see is generated through fake accounts on Skype or fake account on Facebook. They even suggest asking friends to send conversations, don't have to be confidential. But everything is populated. Everything that you see on screen has been populated artificially by the director or by the producers or even the writer in this case. So this is very important. So because so much of the information that is given, we're not keying on everything, but even the names of files, you know, if one character goes in and clicks on one file to open the file, the 9 other files and the names that are used in these files are also telling of this character. So all this is very important information. This is what I am talking about here. This is one of the videos that if you're so inclined, you should watch and see what I mean here. The Screen Life format up to now has been very similar to the Blumhouse business model. In fact, one of the first very successful, actually this is the second installment of the Unfriended series. This was obviously done by, with Timor and Blumhouse together. This was a co-venture with a budget of $1 million. They grossed $65 million. And the way that it works, again, it's a very minimal micro budget. Everyone gets scale. Generous box office bonuses and back-end deals for the most part for all involved. And a lot of the energy and money is devoted to the promotion of the film. So that's why the business model works, because it's not expensive to produce these and you don't have to have stars. Although stars, I'm sure, would be a very good promotional tool. But in this case, so far, the productions that have made reasonable box office receipts haven't included big stars. They have, the Bezalevs have a Romeo and Juliet film in the works. They're in post-production on that. They have a whole slew of other films underway. I'm just gonna play this for a couple of seconds, and I want you to key on one particular thing, which is the reason why this works is the presence of the digital world, and the inciting event here is a laptop, and this is the trailer. And if you're to write a script, a Screen Life script, this is a good place to start. Very effective too. Very scary. Yeah. How does it do this? Okay, play.
Yo, hey buddy, how you doing? It is game night. Ow! Are you ready for this? I got a new laptop. Actually new. There's a cyber cafe that I've been working at, and this computer was sitting in the lost and found for the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Hang on, you stole someone's computer?
I didn't steal it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's messed up. And I found this folder. It was hidden, and it automatically connects you to this thing.
Again, whatever we see is really important.
What's dark web? Part of the internet where no one can track you. It's all about drugs, illegal IDs, even assassination for hire.
So the reason why I'm showing you this is obviously he found a laptop, he took it, he brought it home, and he's using it. I don't know if you've seen this film, but it's the writing here is very efficient, and everything is filmed in one house, in one location. That doesn't have to be. Timor has gotten on certain interviews and even webinars where he's talked about in the last couple of months where he's produced, unlike this, produced Screen Life movies with the actors being remote. So Profile, for instance, which you saw with the ISIS story, was shot remotely, so in different locales, to give the actors a sense of space and distance, and which is really important in this case. Yeah, so this is a really good example. I strongly urge you to see this. So as I said earlier at the top of my presentation, we have two projects with Bezalels. One being called Codebreaker, which is the story of a teenager, a young boy who's bullied at school. A video of him goes viral, and he's extremely humiliated by this experience, and he looks for friends online, and he launches the search to find friends online, and he encounters what they call bots, and these bots generate either a good life for him or a bad life for him, and all chaos ensues after that. But it is a family piece written by this lady here, Liz Storm, who incidentally is a rising writer that we signed following her Nichols Fellowship a couple of years back. We're still trying to sell that script, called Lovely. And she's, you must recognize these people, working on another project with them that we're involved in as well. So she can write screen life very well, and she can write traditional. The director of the piece, Codebreaker, is a Montrealer by the name of Patrick Boivin. He is very well known for his digital presence on YouTube. So this was tailored to suit him to a T, I have to say. And he's contributed intensely to the script, and he's brought some amazing points. This could be interesting for you guys. I don't know if we still have time, but I may skip this, but I strongly urge you to go see it. It is not screen life, but it's certainly digital, and it's got some serious effects and inspired by the master Bruce Lee. We have another piece that Liz is writing with Bezalels again. This one having much to do with the digital world, as the bot one is a female journalist who's being trolled by white dudes who are not really cool with her. And again, chaos ensues. This is in pre-development. We're still negotiating the contract for this. We have a second draft going. We're still waiting for comments from the co-producer, who's a French producer in this case, called Logical Films. Again, by Liz, and it's a really great script. So I want to finish by saying a couple of things that, you know, a bit like Timur, I believe in anything that is original, and I have a tendency to agree with him that traditional modes of filmmaking can be, you know, ordinary and not satisfying, or maybe even not that stimulating for an avid cinephile like me. I love the poet Ezra Pound, who was part of the American expatriates in the 20s, hung around with Gertrude Stein, Hemingway, and he says, make it new. And I think that this is emblematic of what Timur is trying to do. And he's saying that right now the industry is so welcoming of new ideas. He's had to fight for it of his own admission, because people are thinking, well, what if it's so scary, why don't you turn the screen off? You know, that's the kind of comments he's gotten, but isn't that the point? You know, you have to keep the screen on, otherwise there's no entertainment. So he basically says there's no one behind you. As I said, around $1 million. You know, Maria and Timur are willing to take on young directors and young writers, as long as the idea is really hot and it makes sense to them and it fits the screen life mold. I really want you to see this. This is one of the movies that was produced during the pandemic. And I think that we're all affected by this right now. But it's very telling of what's going on. And this is true. This is not fiction. This is a documentary, and I think that the documentary format works in screen life just as well as fiction. This was produced in the melee of Tales from the Quarantine that Timor is part of. I hope this works. There we go. Working.
They were just having so many people die, and they didn't know where they were found and find dead patients waiting for a bed upstairs.
The disease is way more severe than anybody could actually imagine.
We don't have what we need. I don't really care if I get in trouble for speaking to the media.
So again, the I point of view, the director is directly involved. Involvement of actually reaching out to the interviewees. It's this first person.
You told us it was like hell on earth. Yeah, so I'm calibrating what I'm saying. New York City is on fire. Our neighbors are dying. Healthcare workers are being affected. Right now, my boss, my second in command, my nephew, senior nurse, second senior nurse. The people you just mentioned have all fallen ill from COVID-19? Yes. Some of them are quite sick.
In the wake of this pandemic, trying to maintain the healthcare system as is and helping the patients as they come in. And as a result, they're all fallen heroes, so we're honoring them and their memory.
So when we have a patient that comes in, a person under investigation, we will be fit tested for the mask right before we have to go in the room. We will then use this N95 for up to 5 uses. These masks are supposed to be one use only.
Here now is Dr. Calvin Sun. He is an emergency room doctor and has worked with the majority of hospital systems in New York City and New York State.
First of all, thank you for having me. And the situation on the ground is that we were already running out of supplies even before this pandemic was even on our radar.
Doctors in Colorado have been learning a lot from their colleagues in New York, and Dr. Calvin Sun is part of that. He's been busy treating patients while sharing his experiences.
Nurses and doctors, PAs, NPs, staff, techs, they're all scared, right? I've never seen a team of badass healthcare workers become so scared for their own personal safety. And a lot of us are being thrown into this burning building without any protective equipment before it collapses on us.
Every healthcare worker infection, every healthcare worker death is preventable.
Walking into rooms and patients are dead. Just walk into a room, there's a dead body there.
had about 3 deaths in the first 6 hours.
And I know it's a pandemic, and it's just really hard for us to accept the fact that this is the best that we can do.
Our country wasn't built to be shut down. America will again and soon be open for business. Very soon, a lot sooner than 3 or 4 months that somebody was suggesting.
I wouldn't wish this upon anybody. We're running out of supplies. That it's not just the PPE and ventilators. We're running out of IV pumps. We're running out of stuff that we never ran out of before. And it is unacceptable that in the United States of America, the richest country in the world, we are struggling like this.
So I think I don't need to say very much. I think this speaks for itself. The drama's there, the urgency's there, and all done with a very adroit use of screens and typing and videos and interviews. It's a good short. So I have a bonus slide here. I spoke to Maria, who is Timor's, one of Timor's producers. And we've been bandying about this idea of an esports Screen Life movie that they want to make, but they're still in the throes of receiving pitches. So my invitation to you is I'm willing to accept any pitch that has to do with esports. There is no company, or I should say game creator, or a game per se. We haven't, that hasn't been decided yet. But I'm looking into receiving pitches that I can bring to Maria. Yeah, so feel free. Thank you.
Right, cool. And I do love that it kind of worked out that we're doing a talk on Screen Life, and we're
I'm telling you, it's stranger than fiction, isn't it? That's the whole thing.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. All right, cool. So let's get into these writer questions. So they've been popping them into the Q&A box. Thank you for that, guys. I love it when, you know, everybody can follow rules and instructions. Makes my life easy. But before I get to the ones in the Q&A box, a writer who cannot attend live has emailed me a question that I think would be a good one to start with, which is, you know, does a script for a Screen Life movie look different than a traditional screenplay? So we talked about it being written in first person, but, you know, are we doing more descriptions of how the cursor moves? You know, is it, like, what are some hallmarks that would differentiate it from your standard?
It's absolutely preferable that the writer, you know, goes through the exercise of, you know, learning those tools, and maybe even, you know, failing at it, but at least showing that there has been an intent to, you know, appropriate the tools. And yes, you know, anything that you can do to describe the world of this character or the characters will help the readers, be they me or, you know, Maria at Bezalev's, understand more where the writing is coming from. And I would certainly try to make, have a stab at it, to go all out. And you have the videos, and if there are any writers, I think if you're contemplating tackling a story like this, go to the Screen Lifer website and take the time. They're just like 3 or 4 minutes a video, and they're really worth it. And you'll get the hang of it anyway. It's not that hard. But I think to use those tools and try to master them along the way as you go through 1 or 2 or 3 drafts is a really good idea.
Awesome. And then on that train, Sarita is asking, is there any way for writers to get samples of these scripts? Like, have any of them been posted online that writers can see to help them go, oh, okay, this is what they're talking about?
That's a really good question. I'd have to put it to Maria. Can I do that and get back to you guys for that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think that there are any available online, and I haven't even bothered to research that. I'm curious to see if the Romeo and Juliet one would have, because they did it internally. I think it's one of their babies right now. I'll try to see if I can get a copy of it and maybe send it over to you guys.
Okay, cool. That would be awesome. All righty. Okay, and then looks like a couple of folks missed the title of the film on Skype with the
Noah?
Oh no, the one with the reporter and the headscarf.
That is called Profile, and yeah, and that was based on a book. The title escapes me now, but it's a lady that was working for the Guardian, and there was a fatwa declared on her, and she's living underground right now somewhere. I don't know if it's in London, but she's legitimately underground now and in hiding.
All right, cool. So Profile, guys, write it down.
Yeah.
Sweet. So, let's see here. So Alan has an interesting question. He says, if I understand correctly, you said sometimes actual apps are used rather than fakes, such as Skype, for instance. If so, does that involve some kind of copyright, brand, legal issue, and how might that work?
Well, that's a really good question, and I'll send you, if I can locate it. I saw a webinar that Timur gave at the BFI, the British Film Institute, a couple of weeks ago. Very, very fresh, very recent, and someone asks him this very question. And a bit like, the ubiquitous brands, the argument is that they've tried so much to infiltrate your life, that they want to be so present in your life that by rights you should be able to talk about it because it's such an integral part of your existence to some of these bigger brands. To answer, they have had no issues whatsoever using those ubiquitous brands like Facebook and Skype. I even think that they have, they're helping them along by promoting them. So I wouldn't see, unless you say something bad about them, then that becomes an issue. But if they're just there and they're being used by your character in a very objective way, I don't think there's an issue there.
Right, cool. And then let's see here.
But that's a very good question, though.
These guys are coming with good questions today. I love it. So Stuart has one that I was actually thinking as the presentation was going on. So Stuart, same wavelength. How does screen life relate to found footage films?
Well, that's another really good question. So for instance, Blair Witch Project has all the trimmings of what would seem to be a screen life movie, because it's just cameras and people shooting their noses and freaking out and everything, but it doesn't really have anything to do with the digital world. It's really a live action. It's a really regular format found footage film, but it has everything to do with a group of people going on excursion. They're using cameras to film themselves, but they're not using their screens, their iPads or their computers or their telephones.
Cool. And then let's see here. So another question
And what's really important is that the digital, and I was looking at the pandemic documentary at the end. I was trying to figure out, does it withstand my argument that it has something to do with the digital world? And I was kind of questioning it, but a lot of the stuff happens on the screen, so it kind of fits. But the Blair Witch Project was filmed with cameras and no screens, so that's kind of the difference.
All right, cool. And then sort of in this similar family, Sarita has a question. Basically if, like, let's say, part of the movie takes place in the digital world, and we're seeing the screen and the mouse and the clicking and all of that, but there are scenes that are, more traditional. Would that, like, could you still market that as a Screen Life movie? Does it have to be all or nothing?
Well, we were pitching, for instance, one of the projects that we're developing with them, which is called Troll. One of the directors that we pitched to them liked the Screen Life format, but he comes from a very cinematic background, and he wanted to include cinematic portions or just grow from the screen to cinematic. They weren't closed to that at all. It's just the way that it's done, the way that it's brought to them. Again, like rule number one, there are no rules. They'll stay, they'll stay tied to what they've done and has worked, but they're really open to exploring, how the whole language can be blown up and reinvented every time.
Awesome. All right. Let's see here. So a writer had emailed me a question because they couldn't attend, basically asking about pitching a Screen Life film. So if, they've written a script, maybe they have a short, and they want to expand it, do it for real. Are there different elements to keep in mind when pitching something like this as opposed to a traditional story?
I think that, you have to bring excitement, whatever the pitch is. You have to bring it to a level that, it's extremely original, whatever the format is. And I think that's anything. I mean, it could be a book, it could be a short story, it could be an outfit. I mean, if it's something that's completely, new and exciting and very different, I think it works. If there is one thing to look out for, I think is in the originality that you would bring the digital world aspect in your story. I think that's where you have to pay a special care to your pitch. That would be one of the major things to me.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. And then let's see here. So Alan has a question. All right, so it's a little bit long, so we may have to revisit part of it. So he says, you mentioned some projects made $50 million. Could you briefly explain what the general distribution model for such projects are? Are they generally being found on YouTube, for instance, Vimeo, other apps, different kinds of outlets? Do they get released to theaters? Like, well, where can we find Screen Life movies?
They run the gamut of whatever traditional, films go through. I mean, and they have different windows. Obviously, right now we're in kind of more of a streaming climate, and streamers are really taking a big piece of the market, which is no different than what it was like last year or 2 years ago. It hasn't changed that drastically. I think the only problem that we're encountering now is that productions are really hard to get off the ground with the social distancing. But people are, I know that there's a couple of productions here in Montreal, and we're anxious to get to work on the production that we have with them here in Montreal again. And I think that's really the difference right now. But as far as distribution, I think it goes through the same channels as any other film. And I think that obviously, I think it's not meant to be as cinematic and as beautiful when there's a phone that is shaking, but there's kind of a sense of drama involved for the big screen anyway. And I think that I've seen a lot of these Screen Life films on the big screen, and they were very effective for me. So yeah, traditional way of distribution. Like the 5-picture deal that Timor struck with Universal is through a proper channel of distribution. Whatever is going to make sense for that film, and it's always very tailored to suit. There's no one way to unroll the distribution strategy. I'm sure Blumhouse have a way of doing it. You know, it really depends. It really depends on the subject of your film as well.
Right, cool. Alrighty, so back to kind of questions about what these scripts might look like. Sarita is asking, roughly how long might they be?
I mean, anywhere upwards of 80 pages. I think it's like an hour and a half script. You're going for the regular feature length. So I think that's usually, I always like to read a script that's at 90 pages, personally. When it's at 80, that seems like a bit short, but it depends on what kind of action you have in there. But the recent script, the Codebreaker script that we're working on with Liz and Patrick, that was 110 pages.
All right, cool. So generally the same rules apply.
Pretty much.
I love it. It is like, I'm so excited to be learning about all this, but I'm also excited when the same rules apply. I'm like, oh, okay.
You're not too far from what we know already, right?
Like, oh, okay, that's kind of comforting. All right, awesome. So Sunny has a question. Are there any licensing permission aspects we need to keep in mind for using news footage if there's no music in the clip?
Yeah, I think you have to make sure you have the rights to maybe it's a news outlet, maybe there was a producer involved in that news footage. So yeah, you have to be very careful of that. In the case of, you know, some of the stuff that we saw in the documentary, I think that, you know, some of it is part of the public domain. It depends that, you know, you would have to have legal advice on that. But I think that usually you need to have permission.
Yeah, I would recommend erring on the side of caution.
Yeah, in this case, yeah.
Yeah, you can't be too careful. Okay, cool. So another question that a writer had emailed me, would you recommend writer-directors just sort of take a stab at it and try to make their own screen life short and just get in there and play around and see what happens?
I would recommend that 100% because there's so much eagerness to see what people are coming up, and especially the people that I'm talking about, the people we work with. They're very excited, not only for their projects, but for the language. They want to bring it to another place. You know, Timur is a very creative person, and I think he appreciates being part of this new mode of filmmaking that he's, like I said, I mean, he's putting all these tools on his website. You know, he's welcoming young directors to, you know, appropriate them and use them and fashion them for themselves and create new content and you know, make the language evolve, you know, and I think that's where they're coming from. And they're really eager. They're really eager to work with young directors, and they don't have to be young, but new directors, and, you know, they're very open.
All right, cool. So if you guys are like chomping at the bit, ready to go, dive in, give it a go, see what happens.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then the link to your completed film so I can see it. Cool. So Stuart is asking, in a screen life film, the rule seems to be that anything that happens in the quote real world has to be something that would realistically be captured by a smartphone camera or a webcam or something like that. Is that pretty much the case?
Well, yes. I think that the best example, you know, that I can give to answer that is their search for an esport concept. And esport is so easy because you know, you have the player in front of his screen and you know he has a whole world of other players that are playing online with him. We know that there will be a culture of that game. We know that there will be stakes and losing, money to be made, competition. I forget where, I don't know if, I think it's in South Korea. There were a trail of murders, and this is true. a trail of murders that resulted from an e-sport athlete, a very famous and very successful e-sport athlete that was involved in all manner of killings around him. And, you know, it makes perfect sense to just unroll it on the screen, and it's easy. It just makes story sense to do it that way. So again, I think you really have to pick your subject properly, and then once you have it, it's just going to write itself, I think. But I think the key and the hardest part is to find something that fits, and doesn't feel unnatural to the language.
Mm-hmm. Right. You don't want to take a concept that was developed for traditional film and then retrofit it to screen life.
Exactly. That's really hard unless there's kind of a digital world portion to that traditional script. But, you know, I found it really hard, and I thought it was a really great idea, but I was trying to fit something that wasn't, you know, not fitting at all.
Right, cool. So here's actually a question that I have, if you don't mind me asking.
Don't
As
mind.
I'm learning alongside everybody else. Do you think there's potential for Screen Life to make its way to serialized television or web series in some way?
Well, if you go back to the first, I think the first clip that I showed you, they're called Snap Originals. So a bit like Jeff Katzenberg's Quibi, I think there is a big move in the industry to supply content to data providers, because it just makes sense for people to use data. So they want content on there, and it has to be not more than 10 minutes. So right there, Snapchat, Quibi, of course. And I don't know if the other streamers are involved in short content, but just in the Screen Life format content, I think that there's a huge move toward that, because it just makes sense to play videos on your phone, and then just, you know, you don't have the expectations of seeing something on the big screen and falling flat, and it just makes sense to have it there, just like us doing a Screen Lifer on the screen.
Oh man, I love it. It's coming full circle.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So that was all the questions that people had emailed
Oh, man,
me.
that was really fun. I liked it.
Oh, this was so much fun. I learned so much because, you know, funny story writers, whenever we were talking about putting this webinar together, and you told me what you wanted to do, I think I said, I'm not super familiar with this world. What? So.
Well, I hope I answered a few of your questions, and I kind of demystified the whole thing. But I mean, I'm strongly encourage all of you writers to, you know, if it's not an e-sport concept, if that doesn't feel natural, anything that has to do with the digital world, any kind of, you know, it could be family. They're looking, we talked about genre a lot, and I showed you genre, and we're working on a family piece, the Codebreaker piece, the young boy with the bots is family oriented, but they're looking for comedy. They're doing Romeo and Juliet, so they're very open. They want to do also epic. They want to do historical. I don't know how that's going to work, but they want to do historical as well. So they're very open, and I strongly urge you to just, you know, after this, if you can, you know, unleash your originality and go for something that makes sense. There's a lot of openness, and you don't have to be, you know, an established writer to get in there. I really swear on that. You know, as long as your concept is good and your writing is really strong, there's a chance for you out there.
All right, awesome. I love it. All right, cool. Well, I'm going to set everybody free to enjoy their Sunday, but thank you so much. This was wonderful. I've been taking notes, so now when people talk about this, I will know what it means.
And be sure to tell me if you have any more links that you need. I have these handy, so let me know if people are asking for some of the links.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that leads me to remind the writers that links will be coming shortly. So, all right.
Bye, everyone. It was a pleasure spending a bit of my Sunday with you guys.
Oh, of course. course. Thank you so much. And thank you, writers, for your time. Everyone take care, stay healthy and safe, and I will see you all in the next one.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Alexandra. It was great.